Ooh, oh boy, would you look at all of that plastic. Now, I've collected quite a few puzzles over the years, probably more than I should have considering the current state of the economy, but I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot throughout my cubing journey about the puzzle and about the puzzle market. However, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that not all puzzles are created equal. With new twisty puzzles coming out seemingly every 9 minutes at this point, I mean, there's plenty of good ones out there like the fast and affordable Moyu RS3M, but you know, you got a lot of great ones, but you're also bound to get some downright stinkers. And today, the objective of this video is to weed out the stinkiest, call out the smelliest, take a historical journey through the most infamous and problematic puzzles of all time. Alright, now why don't we start in an area where everybody is comfortable. With nearly 500 million sold since its release in 1980, the original Rubik's Cube is without a doubt a successful puzzle and patient zero for all of cubing. However, anyone who's actually seriously gotten into like speed cubing knows how infamously sluggish and clunky the, Rubik's brand 3x3 actually is. Now modern Rubik's 3x3s are, that's loud, they're okay. And Rubik's themselves have even delved into the world of speed cubing a few times. However, Rubik's primary goals with their products has never really been speed. It's been more about stability, strength. They're built to be strong enough to withstand the use and abuse of the average consumer. So they turn a bit rough, but they turn well enough. That same can't be said for Rubik's would delve into higher order puzzles very shortly after the release of the 3x3, with their 4x4 Rubik's Revenge, later rebranded to the Rubik's Master, released in 1981, and also their 5x5 Professor Cube in 1983.
Rubik's Revenge, sent to you with love from Ideal.
While the 3x3 was a bit clunky, it had its redeeming qualities. These two puzzles had nothing going for them. The old Rubik's 3x3s may have been stiff, but trying to turn the early iterations of the 4x4 and 5x5, it's no coincidence that like 30 some odd % of people between like the ages like 45 and 60 whatnot have arthritis. I think we found the reason.
1 second, I'm just trying to put it in a pattern for you guys to see how well it turns.
Rubik's have gone through a few iterations of both of these puzzles. In 2021, they finally released a 4x4, which is actually somewhat pleasant to turn. The 5x5, however, it remains iffy. So yeah, this right here, this is true, and this right here, this is a big fat fib. So yes, Rubik's have certainly improved their line of cubes throughout time, but they have never been so bold as to go beyond the 5x5 into the higher orders, and that is where we find our next subject. Poor old, poor old 6x6. You had a pretty rough introduction to this world, didn't you? The first design for a 6x6 was created and produced by one of Rubik's first big competitors, VCube. Now, VCube isn't as prominent as they once were. You usually only find VCubes in like your local Barnes & Noble or something. But they were the first to ever create a 6x6, and it was no easy task. If you want to learn all about why designing the 6x6 was so difficult, go ahead and watch JPerm's video on that. I'll link it in the description. In short though, a 6x6, mechanically, physically is impossible to create with normal 2x2 through 5x5 manufacturing methods. So VCube here had to find quite a few creative workarounds in order to actually make the VCube 6. Upon its release, the reception of the VCube 6 was a bit mixed. On the plus side, it did function better than the Rubik's 4x4 and 5x5, although it did have some issues with its inner layer coming out of alignment, but this was definitely not the puzzle's main issue. First of all, it wasn't cheap.
I had to pay $100 to buy and ship this thing to get it in my hand.
And secondly, the VCube 6's mechanism itself was special. When unboxing this thing, it quickly became clear that it really wasn't built with speed in mind, but rather stability and alignment. When designing the first 6x6, it was thought that, having so many layers would lead to severe alignment issues where layers are somewhat out of whack with each other and you can't turn the cube. This is, of course, a real thing, but it wasn't really a big enough issue to warrant what VCube did to mitigate it. Now, higher order puzzles today will utilize magnets like this right here to help snap the layers into place and prevent this issue. VCube did not do this. Magnets were not invented till way later. Magnets were invented, they were not deployed in cubes until way later. So what they did is they created a clicking mechanism, a notoriously hated clicking mechanism.
But with a VCube mechanism, just listen to this. Wow, there's that really distinct click, and
this clicking is what made the VCube 6 so infamous in the cubing realm. The clicking was not subtle and helpful like magnets, it was way too harsh. So harsh that it made finger tricking pretty much impossible. The clicking would tend to subside a bit after many solves as the plastic wore down, but it would never really go away completely without heavy modification.
Alright, so the fourth modification, we are going to put in dirt to smooth out those straight edges.
And often these modifications would impact the stability of the puzzle. Unfortunately, Kevin Hayes' 2011 6x6 world record explosion would not be the only world record squandered at the fault of a puzzle. The only way that this clicking would really go away, for good, would be with the release of a brand new puzzle by Sheng Xiao. However, this puzzle too was a bit notorious as well. This is just because its construction, its pieces were somewhat similar to those of the VCubes, and this created a little bit of questioning regarding patent protection among puzzle companies. At the time, VCube was a little notorious for taking legal action in these issues, whether warranted or not, and this stiff business practice was a big reason a lot of people at the time didn't like VCube, and why VCube is no longer a big player in the speed cube game. Now, while VCube at times kind of stretched the bounds of what their patents covered in order to, get back at other puzzle companies, the topic of puzzle designs getting knocked off completely by other puzzle manufacturers is a big issue. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about all that a bit later, but first, a quick tangent onto everybody's favorite puzzle designer and a couple of his more problematic, notorious creations.
Hi, I'm Oskar van Deventer.
Now, if you don't know who Oskar van Deventer is, then first of all, shame. Shame on you. And secondly, he is the brains behind many mass-produced puzzles, some of which you may own, like the Mix-Up Cube or the Gear Shift. But a couple of Oskar's puzzles have encountered a couple rough patches in the road. One of Oskar's lesser-known troubles centers around his 2010 creation, the Gear 5x5. Now, the Gear 5x5 looks pretty intimidating. It's essentially an expansion of an idea of the more well-known and mass-produced Gear Cube. While this Gear 3x3 here has been mass-produced for quite a while now, the Gear 5x5 was not mass-produced legally. Now, if you've been paying attention, and you probably remember earlier when we hinted at lapses in patent protection for twisty puzzles. And honestly, this issue in itself could be like an entire video or two maybe. But in this case of Oskar van Deventer's Geared 5x5, the copying of his design was just especially blatant. Now, for quite some time, Oskar has made many of his puzzles available for 3D print through Shapeways, which will print the item for you. In this case of the Gear 5x5, a company in China known for knocking off and mass-producing many puzzle designs bought a copy of the cube from Shapeways and 3D scanned each of the pieces to create an exact replica that they could mass-produce. Oskar would end up getting in contact with this company, and they were able to reach a deal where his name would be added to the puzzle, and he would also receive royalties for any sales. The puzzle never really gained too much notoriety after this, as the quality of the mass-produced version was not superb, and it's long been discontinued. So that's just kind of a side tangent to encompass all of patent lapses, problems of puzzles as a whole. But there is one more puzzle that Oskar created back in the day that gained a little bit more notoriety. And here we get to take a look at a rare case of heated cubing-related drama Now, most videos involving this issue that we're going to touch on have been deleted, so I'm not going to show them out of respect for the creators, but of course, this being the internet, they still probably exist somewhere out there. And the puzzle that all of these videos concern is the 8-inch bolt. Okay, now this is not what the 8-inch bolt puzzle actually looks like. I'm not going to show it. Just let me do an artist rendition, just to show you kind of how it worked. I don't know if you can hear, but it has fittingly started to storm outside as soon as I've started this presentation here. And enhance our artboard. So the 8-inch bolt is a puzzle, but not a twisty puzzle. It is not a Rubik's Cube twisty puzzle, alright? It's like a kind of like a maze puzzle. It's like a tower. There's the base of the puzzle. There's this part of the puzzle. There's like a maze on the side where you had to like make there's another red colored structure at the top. This is not true to color for reasons. This is the puzzle. Yeah. And the Lord is not happy with what we've done. It is getting feisty out there. Alright, well, it's over with. And we're on to our final problematic puzzle. For our final puzzle, we're bringing it back to WCA events. Remember back when I was talking about the VCube and the Shengshao 6x6, how the Shengshao 6x6 was not the only puzzle to ruin a world record? Well, time to discuss and delve into the world of the Moyu Aolong version 1. Now, the Aolong V1 at first may not seem too special, just another 3x3 speed cube. It was released back in 2014 and was really meant to be a more top-of-the-line cube for the time. The Aolong was kind of meant to be a line of puzzles to succeed the previous line of 3x3s, the Weilongs, and upon its release, successor, it was. It was quick, easy to control, and had great corner cutting for the time. However, the Aolong V1 had one major quirk that would cement its bad reputation among speed cubers. Yup, corner twists. Corner twists are a problem with some puzzles, particularly older speedcube 3x3s, where if you have the tensions too loose, if you're turning too sloppily and imprecise, a corner can twist in place just like that, which causes the puzzle to be unsolvable with traditional face-turning moves. Back in the days of the first good speed cubes, pretty much every 3x3 was prone to corner twisting. This is because many speed cubers at the time were craving better corner cutting more than anything, and that's what manufacturers were delivering on. To improve corner cutting, cube manufacturers began rounding off corner pieces more and more. This did make corner cutting in all directions a bit better, but it also made corner twists a lot more common. But we all just dealt with it, didn't we? We said that corner twisting is just a problem of the solver, being inaccurate and sloppy with their turning. It's not a problem of the puzzle. Good speed cubes have to have these rounded corners in order to corner cut and perform at the top level. It is no fault of the puzzle, right? This was a widely accepted belief until June of 2014, when a little competition had in attendance a little-known speed cuber named Felix Zemdigs, who brought an Aolong V1 to competition, where this happened. And yes, that would have been a new world record single. So now this video comes out, it's getting a ton of attention, and Moyu's response is swift, as they are quick to release the Moyu Aolong version 2. Now with absolutely no way of corner twisting, but hopefully with a way to redeem Moyu's reputation at the time. This was actually a pretty good puzzle, the Aolong V2. I used this stickered Aolong V2 as my main for probably most of my cubing career, many years. It's been through 3 or 4 sets of stickers by this point, probably needs another set. So Moyu releases the Aolong V2, it's evident more than ever that corner twisting is a problem, and it's got to get fixed. Creating mechanisms to resist corner twisting is kind of a top priority, and this year is the last iteration of the Aolong and the Aolong family of puzzles, the third and final one, the Aolong GT, and you can see this is where we finally see the squared off corners that we're used to seeing today. Earlier I mentioned how most companies were rounding the corners of their cubes to increase corner cutting, but it actually turns out that If you round out just the inner kind of stalk of a corner, but leave the surface of the piece cubic, you can have good corner cutting while preventing corner twists. However, when I took the squared off corners of the Along GT to a competition in 2016, I managed to get 4 corner twists in one average of 5. So what do I know? So there you have it, the undebatable, unquestionable list of the most problematic puzzles throughout cubing history. Thanks to those of you folks over on the r/Cubers subreddit who helped answer the question that this video posed. You had some very interesting answers. Here's some that made the video. Here's some that didn't. You can scold me in the comments section if you think some of these should have been included. And feel free to vent to everyone what your most problematic puzzles have been throughout your cubing career. The next video is going to be a bit more positive, so get the rage out now. I will see you later.